It is Bleav in Texans presented by FanDuel. I'm Seth Payne. He's Cecil Shorts, former Houston Texans player. Cecil is in Houston. I'm in West Virginia, where, my God, Cecil, it's so much nicer here. It
looks
right now.
Beautiful in the background.
Oh, we got an Airbnb. There's deer in the yard. Not the annoying deer either. A single a doe and two of her fawns. And I got to watch practice today. I've got good news and I've got bad news.
Okay.
The good news is this. The defense, psychos, like just psychotic freaks of nature all over the place. Offense, not quite psychotic in the way that I want them just yet.
Well, let me ask you this then. Is it because the defense is just so psychotic? Like, they're so good that it makes it hard on the new offensive coordinator and the new guys to really gel together? Or is it a little bit of just, we're not just there yet?
That's what I'm telling myself. That So Sean Pendergast, as you know, Sean, my radio co-host, said it at the end of practice. We're watching the last team period, and as they all came up together, the defense was celebrating something. I can't remember. They had so many big plays. I think it was Al-Shaair's interception in the end zone in a red zone drill. But you look at the defense, and it looks like something out of a football movie. The way they're celebrating and everything, and hooping and hollering, and the offense is just kind of walking like they're on their way to a wake, which might as well be the huddle up at the end. There is that it's a brand new offense. You don't just have new offensive linemen. It's that the offense is new to them too. And they're going against a defense that I think is definitely going to build on what they did last year. So the defense is a finely tuned machine. And if I'm making excuses for the offense at this stage in training camp, what I'd say is it's almost like you might be a really good video game player, but if you start a game for the first time and just drop yourself down into level 6, that's what it looks like. Like everything's there's too much speed. And on the offensive line, where really obviously is something we're all watching, it was interesting because we had settled into a situation where it felt like, okay, it's going to be Cam Robinson at left tackle, Laken Tomlinson at left guard. There's a battle at center. Then it's going to be Titus Howard at right guard. And then probably lately it's been Ariante Ursary, the rookie, at right tackle. Today they came out and they started off with the 2s, and Cam Robinson was running with the 2s. And Cam Robinson got injured on the first play. And what they ended up going to with the 1s was Titus Howard moving out to right tackle and Ariante Ursary moved over to left tackle. So the fact that I think Ursary might have been playing left tackle today, whether Cam Robinson had gotten hurt or not, I think they just wanted to get him some looks there. Can you hear that lawnmower in the background?
No, I don't. Actually.
Okay, good. That's good for the MV7 microphone. We need to get a live read for the MV7 microphone. It's the offensive line is a work in progress. I think Ursary, I'm intrigued by. Like, he is a big dude who moves really smoothly, and he has moments where he looks like a rookie, but on his good reps, he looks really, really good. Like, he gets deep in his drop really quickly. He just uses his hands well. He lets guys get into his body a little bit, but that's what a lot of rookies do until you learn how to absorb that the right way. But I'm excited by him. He's still got some work to do, obviously, as a rookie.
You mentioned something interesting. You didn't mention when Cam went down this morning. You didn't say Blake Fisher went in.
Right.
They moved from guard to left.
They moved Titus to right tackle, and Ursary was the left tackle.
Left tackle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how's Blake been looking? Has Blake struggled? Is he just
Blake has struggled.
Round billing? Okay.
Yeah, Blake has been. He's had a lot of just false starts, bad plays. I don't think I haven't been out there at practice until today, but just from talking to guys that have been out there every day, Cam Robinson hasn't looked awesome. I try not to worry too much about that when it's a veteran player, just because there's a lot of times veteran offensive linemen just take a few weeks to get going, but it's not ideal. And then I think the spillover effect is that CJ today, who's had good days in camp, and the offenses look good at times, this was not one of the good days. There were times where between the pass protection and then just flat out, there's nobody open. So there's times where today it looked like CJ was just kind of either making a hasty decision or a desperate decision. I mean, he threw what would have been an interception to Jalen Petrie right down the middle, point blank in a red zone drill, and Petrie couldn't come up with it. But it was a bad decision. And I think that's where people are concerned a little bit that some of CJ's interceptions in camp so far, there have been some, 50-50 ball type throws or whatever, and you don't worry about those. But I think it's some of the bad decision plays, which we don't expect from CJ. But it is also 2.5 weeks into camp, and I think he's still getting a feel for exactly what this offense is going to be.
That's what I'm kind of worried about, though. Coming off of, and I don't think it was a down year, but it was a year that we all didn't think he'll have, right?
Yeah.
Would he come into this year with a new offense trying to prove himself again, trying to force the ball, trying to really say, hey, I can really be good like I was my rookie year? So it's interesting you saying that. What else are you seeing from CJ? I know, let me say this. It was tons of turnovers today from what I was reading. Pick six after pick six after pick six.
It was, yeah. Look, I'm a former defensive guy saying this. I'll concede every pick is a pick six in training camp because they're not allowed to tackle you. So you just run it, and then you meet in the end zone. We scored 29 points today, which isn't a multiple of 6, but whatever. That's what I wonder about. And I was talking to Kim Davis, and she said, you remember CJ's rookie year, he didn't really look all that impressive during training camp. And that was what I struggled to convey during that training camp that year was he's not doing anything electric or magnificent, but I felt like he had a pretty good command by the end of training camp of what he was supposed to be doing. And with CJ, there is that part where he's trying to do everything the right way. And sometimes when you're somebody that is really conscientious at the beginning of a process, like when you learn a new technique, it could be typing, when you learn how to type. If you do it the right way at the beginning, you're slower than the people that are hunting and pecking. Yeah. But you just got to go through the process. And I think a lot of that, it might be as simple as that, is he's just going through the process. But then again, like that, Cecil, they're just maniacs, man. CJ Gardner-Johnson is a maniac. Kalen Bullock's out on the field 45 seconds after the play had cleared, still talking smack in the direction of the offense. It's so much fun to watch. I just don't like watching him do it versus the Texans.
I tell you what, I've heard nothing but glowing reports on Kalen Bullock. Yeah. And how special he looks in camp and how he just looks comfortable back deep and how he's covering the field from sideline to sideline. He had a good day today?
Yeah, I didn't notice him. I was trying to zero in on the offensive line. I'm guessing he probably had a pass breakup at somewhere because everybody was all over the place everywhere. Jalen Petrie had a couple of nice plays. The one thing that I wondered about and that I worried about a little bit was Jalen Petrie when he's in the slot. And I'm not alone in this concern. He is a safety / linebacker more than he is a cornerback. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you that. There's times during camp where, he's struggled when he's one-on-one man coverage versus a slot receiver. Like, you live with it to a certain degree because you love all the good things that Petrie can do. But as an offense, when you know that you can potentially attack that, like, what's the defense's answer for it? Is it just disguising and blending coverages and just not letting the offense really get a good feel for when he's in man?
Will Anderson and Neil Hunter is your answer right there. Getting pressure on the quarterback is the main thing because you can't hide everybody. Like at some point, the defense knows, the offense is going to know, okay, he struggles in coverage. He's good. He struggles a little bit. So you try to find the matchup on offense, but there's only so much you can do. And I think that what they would do is just try to get extreme pressure when they're in man situations where he has to cover somebody, right? Yeah. I look at CJ Gardner-Johnson as the same thing. He's a kind of a backer type thing. I don't know if he's that much better in coverage, in my opinion. But the attitude and everything else he brings is just flat out like awesome, right? Yeah. So it's just literally getting the pressure from that defensive line and linebackers.
CJ Gardner-Johnson, he did an interview. It was on the Pivot with Ryan Clark and Fred Taylor. Yeah. And it was interesting.
Didn't you? You played with Fred?
Yeah. Okay. It's been cool to watch him on the Pivot. Like I never would have expected it. They do an awesome job. He was the quietest rookie ever.
So subdued.
So CJ Gardner-Johnson talked about when they got into the Super Bowl, he was telling himself, I don't need to be CJ Gardner-Johnson, and I don't need to make tackles, and I don't need to make interceptions. I just need to be the safety. You know, like the meaning of the name of just, I got to be sure that I'm not letting big things pass this. I think he's grown a lot in terms of knowing just exactly when to give him full CJ Gardner-Johnson or when to back off and when to play a little bit more conservatively. So that I'm intrigued. I mean, the potential for this defense to create turnovers, there's usually some flukishness with turnovers, you know, like from one year to the next. The thing that's not flukish is if you get a good pass rush, like you said, and they're going to get a good pass rush. I mean, like watching those pass rushers today, it's amazing how much depth they have, and aside from just Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson. But then guys with actual ball skills. And you look at Derek Stingley, you look at Kalen Bullock, and Kalen actually catching the ball is a different story, but he's got a really good knack for getting his hands on the ball. CJ Gardner-Johnson's had like 20 interceptions in his last 2 full seasons. Yeah. You know, Kamari Lassiter, who I talked about, I talked to Kamari Lassiter after practice, had a good conversation with him. That part, yeah, I feel confident in that. And you talk about Jalen Petrie. The Jets game is the one that people always bring up. I bring it up myself because he was on Devontae Adams one-on-one in the slot. Oh. And Devontae Adams ends up coming up wide open. The thing about that play was it was a 6-man blitz. I mean, it was a cover 0 blitz. 0. And Henry To'oTo'o was just 6 inches away from destroying the play as a blitzer. And if he had just taken a little bit better of a route to the quarterback, credit Aaron Rodgers because he made an incredible throw. But I think that speaks to exactly what you're talking about there. Like Petrie's gonna be in situations where it's uncomfortable, but if the pass rush can get there, it's not as uncomfortable.
Yeah, it can save him a little bit. And I don't know how often, you know, D'Amico and the defensive coordinator is going to want to put him in that situation, right? Yeah. So I think they'll be like strategic of how they use that. But talk to me about the Kamari interview. How did that go?
It was good. You know what I had him do was I had him take me through a couple of his interceptions from last year. One of his interceptions in the Lions game when they were trying to get Sam Laporta, and then the interception in the Chargers game when they were going after Quinnen Williams. And they were both really interesting because, you know, Kamari, the one part he talked, like, as you know, the good defensive backs are so freaking smart. And the stuff that they process in the middle of the play where he's trying to figure out what leverage to have or to keep on Laporta, and he could see Goff's eyes, you know, as he's playing Laporta, but he could tell that Goff was just looking off to the left and then coming back to the right side of the offense where he was. So he felt like, Goff wants Laporta on this one.
That's insane.
And like, I mean, the things that those guys process in real time. And then the other one was the Chargers interception where it was a boot or a roll out to the right, and Quinnen Williams was coming off on what looked like a slant or a deep crosser, and he ends up whipping back a banana and back to the far sideline. But Jared Goff's off to the right sideline, and he just loads up and tries to throw across the field. And the receiver had gotten some ground on Kamari, but Kamari said, you know, I knew that ball was going to be in the air a long time, so I knew I had time. So I caught up to him a little bit and then looked back for the ball, and then he was able to make the pick just because he knew kind of the difficulty of the throw. And as he's telling me all this, I had him I think I said I had him explain it to me like I was a high school defensive back, like you know, because that's how I'm going to put it out on social media. Is just you know, him explaining the play as it's going on. But he's just, as a rookie, processing all that stuff and understanding the tendency of quarterbacks in a way that I don't think it's normal for rookies to operate that way.
No, it's not normal, and that's insane. Like, and that's exciting to hear. But for whatever reason, what came to my mind too was like, how is Nick going to pay all these guys when it's time to pay?
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, hey, I'll let them figure that out.
We're gonna he's gonna have a Jerry Jones type moment. He's gonna just start losing it. He's just gonna start claiming he doesn't know Kamari Lassiter's agent's name and all that.
No, don't know his agent. Don't want to talk to his agent. We made the agreement off the record. That's funny. Well, that's. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask you about Christian Harris. Is he any sighting of him today? Any sighting of Dameon Pierce? Are they practicing yet?
I cited Christian Harris, and it was as he was working out on the sideline. And let me tell you this: he was doing a drill where he was just bouncing up and down in the air, and he looked very good bouncing up and down. It looked like they were doing some kind of plyometric thing. And if you're watching on the YouTube, you can see it looked the calf looked completely healthy as he was bouncing up and down. That's about all I can tell you about Christian Harris. Dameon Pierce is on the pups. We're not going to see Dameon Pierce for a little bit, but that part, some of the linebackers, Jamal Hill, who was a rookie last year, has done some good things. He was very raw. He was a safety converted to linebacker his last year at Oregon, so he still had a lot to learn. He's somebody that I'm intrigued by just because D'Amico's historically done such a great job with guys like Azeez Al-Shaair or Fred Warner, or other guys that come in. You know, Fred Warner started off as a safety in college and then made that transition. So, yeah, he's a big fact check me on that later. But he was a big safety, or at least I think maybe he was like more of like in a Jalen Petrie at Baylor type of role, just kind of a jack of all trades, could go around and do everything. But after practice today, I'm looking at the opening line versus the Rams that FanDuel has the Rams as a 2.5 point favorite, and these are the two things that I'm wondering about. One is, yes, if the offense right now doesn't make steps and strides versus good defenses, they face a really good front seven versus the Rams, and it's going to be in Los Angeles, and that's going to be difficult. The other side of it is that Matt Stafford is banged up and injured right now, and if he's not 100%, it ends up being Jimmy Garoppolo. If Jimmy Garoppolo, the quarterback, if I get bad news about Matt Stafford potentially playing at all or something, if there's some kind of hesitation, I would hammer that with the Texans, just because I think Jimmy Garoppolo would throw 17 picks against this Texans defense.
If Jimmy G is the starter, put your money down now.
Yeah, that line's going to change, right? Yeah. If you've got an inkling that somehow Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the guy, then do it now.
Absolutely, that's going to be interesting.
The other thing is,
I thought
it's in LA.
You're right, it's in LA.
Yeah. Okay, technical difficulty, but Jared Verse is like, he's a lot like Will Anderson his rookie year. He's very, very physical. He only had 4.5 sacks last year, but when you watch him play, he's a full-grown man. And it reminds me of Will Anderson, where one of the reasons he didn't get more sacks his rookie year was that he bull rushed guys right into the lap of the quarterback, but then had a hard time kind of separating and just finishing the deal. So that's if the offensive tackles aren't in great shape, that front seven for the Rams has some real problems.
Does he move around a lot? Have I seen him inside, like in a 3 technique at times, or is he more on the outside with the tackles?
When I watched him, he was mostly on the outside. I think he came down inside. It's interesting you brought that up, because I was watching the centers today, and there's things about Jarrett Patterson that I like. There's things about Jake Andrews that I like, and they've been kind of rotating between the ones and the twos. But Andrews he's very stout, but he had a bad rep today, and I think it was against Darrell Taylor, who's a defensive end, but would have been playing inside probably on a third down rep there. Like, he's one of those defensive ends for the Texans that looks really, really good, and he's second string, going to be in the rotation. But the Rams kind of have that same problem that they can present to the Texans.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, because who was the other guy that came in with Verse last year from Florida State, who actually went higher than Verse? I want to say
it was Brandon. I'm blanking on his name, but yeah, they brought him in together, and
he's more of the interior, right? The more tackle.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, maybe I mixed it
and
gotcha.
Yeah, and they both did. They really. They kind of I guess maybe like all these rookies these days, it seems like they come in a lot more developed and advanced. And the one thing about them, I was talking to Nick Caserio about just rookies in general, and it sounds like Braden Fisk is his name. It sounds like teams just have less tolerance for jackasses anymore. Like, they flat out, those first round contracts are all guaranteed, and they don't want to mess around with guys that don't take it really, really seriously. So it's, as far as the Texans and them being 2.5 point underdogs to the Rams, I'm not offended by it by any stretch of the imagination. It's a lot of what I need to see from the offense in the next couple weeks, and however much we see the the first string offense during the preseason games and in the combined practices, that's really what's going to tell the story. Because the offensive line, if we leave CJ Stroud out of it, Cecil, they are running a bunch of duo. When they run, they are, for people that don't know duo, it's a modern version of power football. You double team the defensive tackles up into the laps of the linebackers, and then the running backs make a decision about wherever the hole ends up being, the hole ends up being. And that's where I think Andrews might be the center might be physically suited to that more than Patterson. But I think they like Patterson's mind and his ability to direct traffic. So there's kind of a trade-off there. But the physicality for what they want to do, really, for a team that wants to establish the run, that wants to set up play action, they got to show that at some point in the preseason for me to really buy into it.
Well, let me ask you this. Since we're talking run game, how has Chubb looked? Like you seeing firsthand today in West Virginia, yeah. Chubb, Woody Marks, Dare, are these guys looking apart in the run game?
Chubb's a tough one because he doesn't look like the peak version of Nick Chubb. He just he doesn't have the same pop, the ability to maybe break away at this point or to just break somebody's ankles in the open field. I don't think it's there. Physiologically, he's back and he looks good, and everybody knows he's just the quintessential hard worker, does everything the right way. I think the biggest thing for them right now with Chubb is probably just in pass protection. He knows what he's doing, and he's for a team that struggled to pick up blitzes last year, I think they're probably going to factor that in. But running back, I know we talked about this last week. When you're out there and you watch and you look and see which running backs are available, it's the running backs in the offensive line make me nervous right now, because on the offensive line, okay, if Cam Robinson goes down and Titus Howard goes out to right tackle, all of a sudden you've got a center position that's still in flux. You've got a new but aging veteran at left guard. You've got Ed Ingram at right guard. He was with Minnesota last year, but he got benched midway through the year. You start to see, man, these guys, they've really got to function as a unit well, because I don't feel awesome about guys individually. It's just, can they actually play as a cohesive unit?
Oof, this is going to be interesting.
It's going to be fun.
You're making me nervous, though. You're making me nervous. You sounded awesome about the defense. Psychotic. We it's going crazy. Big six at the I think every quarterback today, from Graham to Davis to CJ, threw an interception to somebody.
Yeah. Cecil. They're taking chances. They're taking chances is what they're doing. Okay. It's okay. Okay. You gotta work through this stuff. If they had to play a game today, I'd be really nervous about it. I think that when you're installing a new offense versus a defense that's this good, there's going to be hiccups. And the part that I'm not nervous about CJ long term. You know that. I am nervous about him if they can't, for an offense that really wants to establish the run. It's the modern NFL. You don't necessarily have to establish a run, but if that's the kind of offense you're running, then yeah, you better establish the run. If that's your chosen methodology, you got to be able to run the football. And some of that I think we just might not see until you can go full go in the games where you can actually really give a gritty double team where you're trying to grind guys into the ground. Because right now everybody's just trying to stay up.
They're taking care of each other. Let me ask you this. I got to ask you about the receivers.
Yeah.
You mentioned that a few guys in the depth area were making plays. Who's out today?
Okay, Braxton Berrios made a really nice catch on the sideline, and he's fun to watch. He's kind of like, I don't want to compare him to Tank directly, but he's got that quality to him of guys that it doesn't quite look like that's how a human being should be able to move, because he's so fast. He's tiny, but he's just really, really fast, laterally as well as downfield. Xavier Hutchinson had a nice play. John Mechie got off to a slow start in first week and a half or so. I think he's shown up more in the last week. So that battle for depth right now, you got Justin Watson, you've got so many guys that special teams is going to end up being a huge, huge part of it. But some of those guys show, the Graham Mertz has looked good at times. Davis Mills, I think, is maybe looking as smooth and comfortable as he has since he's been with the Texans. And part of that, he's got experience learning new offenses. The other side of the coin to
he's
just having. And look, and I know I'm sweating now because I had to run and change in the middle of this thing. This weather up here, oh my gosh, Cecil. I never want to go to a training camp practice ever again anywhere other than West Virginia. It's perfect. I don't know, it might have been like upper 70s by the end of practice, but I wasn't sweating. Yeah, my sweat evaporated and it was breezy. There was some cloud cover. Oh, it's so nice. And there's no fans this time, which I think D'Amico really liked, just to try to get that isolated feel of just guys, being at an actual camp together.
Yeah, that's amazing. 70s at the end of practice. Oh, it's a perfect day.
Yeah. Oh, nobody looked tired. When I interviewed Kamari Lassiter, usually you interview guys after practice, and I always feel guilty because I remember being the player and just being miserable. And it's like the last thing you want to do is you just drenched. You've lost 20 pounds of water weight. I was like, I don't think Kamari Lassiter is that miserable talking to me. I feel good about this. I want to keep him longer.
Let me ask you this. Is there an advantage? I mean, I guess it is. But I'm thinking about the Texans schedule. They go to LA, then they play indoors. So it's not really no advantage of being outside. Like, it's not like a conditioning, you know what I mean? You get what I'm saying?
No, yeah, I think it's
conditioning or...
That's how I always felt when we played in Houston. It's that, man, every time we play on Sundays, it's 75 degrees and pretty nice. I mean, we needed to get acclimatized. If we had a game in Miami or something, it was good that we'd been practicing outside. But I think the biggest thing, I think D'Amico likes the heat as a mental toughness creator. It's just kind of like in the old day, you can't do 2-a-days the way you used to and all of those other things, but you get as close to like a Junction Boys mentality is that you're going to be out there in the heat. It's going to suck. You're going to be miserable and you got to figure out how to get it done. So I think that's what he likes about it. But then you get to this stage in camp and it might also have a little to do with maybe injury prevention, that as guys are getting fatigued, get them into an environment where it's cooler and more comfortable and there's not as many distractions. Guys can just focus on their rehab.
Fair enough. So,
all right, Cecil, thanks for bearing with me through my technical difficulties. Thank you to the listeners for bearing with us. Please subscribe. You can check us out on YouTube. It's a Bleav in Texans podcast presented by FanDuel.